All right, all right, all right. How's everybody doing tonight? And welcome to another episode of the Grief and Let's Talk About It podcast. Tonight we have another great guest, Angilie Kapoor. Just want to make sure that I'm pronouncing her name correctly. She's an amazing person. Angilie is a leadership coach, author, speaker, and a founder of Oversight Global. And today we're going to dive into something that needs to be discussed: mental health in the workplace. I mean, and she has an amazing journey herself. So, you guys sit back and just remember this is for educational purposes only. If you're struggling with your mental health, please go out and seek support. The things that we talk about are things that we've had to go through our own selves, and by no means should you try the things that we've tried. And without further ado, we're gonna bring on my next guest. Angelie, how you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
I am doing well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Yes, yes, yes. It's always fun, man. After a couple of rescheduling, right?
Right, yeah. Because life just happens.
Yes, yes. Life just happens. It definitely happens. And so yeah. Before we dive into your story and
Mhm.
everything, tell people where you're from. We talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, so I actually am originally from Austin, Texas,
Mhm.
and moved to Seattle, Washington. And as a teenager, I went to high school and college there, and spent a lot of years there, pretty much up my entire adulthood. And a couple of years ago, my husband and I, we have always talked about getting out and traveling the world. It was something that we've always aspired to do, but kind of recognized that we were making excuses and letting fear really stand in our way of, achieving that dream. And so, actually, right now I'm in Bali, Indonesia, and we've been here for a few months, and we're loving it. We got over the fear, told ourselves no more excuses, and just last December just started traveling. We spent some time in India and are now here in Bali, Indonesia, and we just love it. And as you said, I am a leadership coach and the founder of Oversight Global. And the mission with Oversight Global is really addressing the consciousness crisis that's out there in the world, that I've experienced and observed. So that's just a bit about me.
Okay. Now let's dive into that. I mean, you guys have traveled. Um, how did you get into the role of the consciousness, um, and plus and dealing with entrepreneurs and things? Because I have to, I don't want to assume, so I'm going to ask you deal with entrepreneurs and things like that, and taking them from a place of being stuck to thriving. Correct?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, primarily I work with managers in the workplace because that's where my
Mhm.
experience came from. So I actually come from a background in healthcare of over 20 years. And I started on the clinical side, moved to the administrative side, and worked my way up the career ladder. And when I got to the leadership and management ranks, it was really a different experience for me because, I'm a type A personality, I'm a perfectionist and overachiever, and I was used to uh, gathering my footing, getting into the groove of a new position really quickly and excelling in that position. That's
Mhm.
how I climbed the ladder so quickly. But when I got to leadership and management, it was completely different. I was struggled to find my footing. I there was a transition there that I at first couldn't quite figure out what that was, and I
Mhm.
spent a couple of years trying to figure that out. And um, anyhow, just from my experience of going through my management leadership struggles and developing and growing in that role, it's something that I felt there was a lack of knowledge and, significant training for somebody going into that role. And it's a very important role. It's a role that has a great responsibility, and I will go into that more here in a little bit. But that's really where I saw a need. And after being in management leadership for about 6 or 7 years, I decided to pivot. I didn't want to continue to climb that ladder, so I decided to pivot and really grasp onto what I was really passionate about in my role, and that was mentoring and coaching my team and the doctors that I worked with. And so, I was really intentional about going to coaching school for a year, and then I opened up my own coaching business. And again, initially, I started with workplace managers, working with them, helping them to get through their struggles and get to the other side. And then, as I really started to develop and grow in my role as a leadership coach, I really started to recognize that the uh, the aspect of leadership is actually more than just in the workplace. It's actually in life. And
Right.
so, I found that what I was doing was applicable to, like you said, entrepreneurs and business owners. It's also applicable to struggling Christians, people struggling with their health and wellness, and
Right.
people, struggling basically with anything. And the component that they were missing that I really, found was that they had not yet discovered their inner, what I call their inner phenomenal leader.
Like that, like that. Because a
Yeah,
lot of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, when people struggle like that, it has a lot to do um, with a few variables, culture, their
right.
surroundings, and things like that. But I think the biggest thing is their mental health,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
They may be struggling up here. You never know what a person's going through. Yeah,
Exactly.
and I can only imagine, working in the workplace and going with your own struggles, tying that stuff in and understanding,
Mhm.
how much of a role that actually takes, especially when you're dealing with somebody that's high capacity,
Right.
so to speak,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Your managers, your sort of entrepreneurs, your business owners, and things like that. These are people that have put a lot of stress on top of their head, in order to make a business grow, and
Right.
to get it where it needs to be, so to speak.
Mhm.
And yourself going into a leadership role, and struggling trying to find your footing in there. What were some of the steps that you took that you applied to helping these individuals get out of, find that, as you said, that inner phenomenal leader?
Yeah. So as I was going through my management struggles as a first-time manager, I got to the point to where I started to realize that transition that nobody prepped me for, and I wasn't, and it wasn't discussed. It's not taught really in any books or courses or anything. Is that when you go from a position of being an employee, it's really kind of an inward focus, I call it, is where you're
Mhm.
worried about how you're doing your job, how you're performing, and your own personal goals. But when you get into a position of authority, whether that be a manager or a business owner or entrepreneur, there's this transition that happens because all of a sudden you're going from one to many. You're
Right. Yes.
overseeing many. So there's this transition that has to happen in terms of your perspective, how your mindset, how you are thinking about not just yourself anymore, about others. It's a completely different approach. And when I kind of had that aha moment of, oh, okay, that's what it is, and I really started to, you know, trying to discover how do I make that transition, I actually stumbled onto it is all within me. I had to learn about who I was and learn about my habits and my behaviors and my patterns and how I responded to things or reacted to things. I really needed to figure out who I was and become a leader of myself first before I could effectively lead others. And so that's really where that switch kind of flipped. And then once I kind of discovered that and figured that out, the more I grew in learning and knowing myself and liking myself and loving myself, the better leader I became. So, these things that were taught in these leadership and management books or in these courses and trainings about, communication skills, how to delegate, how to, change management. These things really came naturally. I didn't really need to go through any types of training and stuff like that. they came naturally. And I also find that with people that I've worked with, my clients kind of going through the same struggles is when they start to figure out who they are and they're starting to get a better grasp of that, it things just kind of come intuitively. They know answers intuitively instead of before they struggled and were confused and really lacked clarity and direction.
Wow. Now, see, that is amazing. And that,
Hmm.
I guess that's kind of how you figure out that's where you belong, right? You know what I'm saying? When those
Exactly.
things kind of happen like that. And I felt that right here because the work that I do in the nonprofit world, working with men and
Hmm.
things like that. I tell people, when they come in and they see my certifications, they go, "Oh wow, you had to go." I was like, "No, actually, I went online and I saw the material, but I went straight to the test and just took the test."
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it just that stood out to me and everything, and taking all of the constructive struggles, I like to call
Hmm.
them.
Hmm.
They were actually my building blocks. And again, I couldn't tell you where it came from, just like most of the people that you work with. They probably couldn't tell you where it came from. It just came
Hmm.
to them naturally, right?
Right. Right.
And I think that is huge. That is really huge because when we think about the world today, right,
Hmm.
and with everything leading up to where we're at today, a lot of people are struggling out here, and I guess that's like a question for me, like where in your opinion do you think that is coming from the people that you work with, because you work with a lot of older people, correct?
Yes. Hmm. Hmm.
And so, we have a younger generation out here. And just a question, where do you think that struggle is coming from them fitting into a corporate environment?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that really comes back to what my company's
Mhm.
tagline is addressing the consciousness crisis in the world. And first of all, let's define consciousness and the
Right.
crisis. So, how I see that is when I say consciousness crisis, I mean I see and I've observed and experienced that uh there's a majority of us who what I call are still asleep. And then
Mm,
there's a small percentage of us who have been awakened.
right.
And the reason why I say that is because, in my experience and in working with the people that I've worked with, a huge thing that stands out to me is that, they're not really, again, there's not a lot of people who are truly self aware, and there are not a lot of
True.
people who are really conscious about what's going on with them and also around them,
Mm,
especially, kind of rippling out into these layers of, immediately around you, with the people that you are with all the time, to what's going on in your neighborhood, your community, your state, your country, your region, whatever it might be. And I really feel and have found that the key to that is because there we are in our society, we are bombarded with certain expectations.
mm,
We are bombarded with people trying to fit us into these molds and these boxes, and kind of really trying to cookie cutter how they think a person should be, especially in the workplace. I found that as a manager that my boss and my mentor, she really tried to make me into a carbon copy of her.
mhm,
And then the other leaders in the workplace, they really try and again conform new managers into what they're doing. And I know for me it was, I felt very uncomfortable and kind of trapped, if you will, in these type of situations where I was starting off as a manager, and even in places like my church, or dealing with my chronic medical conditions.
mhm,
In healthcare as a patient, I felt like a number. I just felt like my doctors were just doing the treatments for me that they were doing for everybody else who they diagnosed as having the same thing. And
Right.
then the same thing in church, I kind of felt like, my pastors and my deacons were really kind of conforming me into being the same as everybody else instead of
Mm,
ushering me towards having my own personal relationship with God.
right.
So it to me my experience was it really lacks the what I call the leader sacred mission of people in positions of authority and who strive to be true leaders is that they aren't addressing and they're not following and achieving that leader sacred mission of creating more leaders.
Mm,
And that's really, the basis of my programs that I do with my clients is, helping you, like I said, discover your inner phenomenal leader, because I believe that we all have that within us. It's
right.
just realizing that, discovering that, and then beginning to embody that. And that to me is, how we address the consciousness crisis in this world is help people to become leaders of their own lives, help people become leaders of themselves.
Yeah.
And honestly, in my opinion, a lot of the struggles will go away, because a lot of what I found with my experience and working with others is that the lack of self awareness and consciousness is actually the root cause of the external struggles that we have. When I was a manager, the internal struggles that I had was, overwhelm,
Mm,
self doubt, having difficulty connecting with my team and being able to manage their personalities effectively. Well, when I started going on my self discovery journey, I started to realize these are really symptoms, external challenges of the root cause, which was actually internal struggles within myself.
mm, okay. I like that because I don't think a lot of people grasp that right
Right.
there.
Hmm.
The internal struggles. Um, and that's pretty interesting. That is definitely interesting. So when we talk about internal struggles, you know, are we talking about how we talk to each other, how we treat ourselves and things like that, because that could play a big role on our conscious being. Um,
Hmm.
and also, our self-esteem, because if you
Yes.
don't feel good about yourself, of course you're not going to perform to your highest in the workplace, right? You're
Hmm.
definitely going to be struggling about that. And then we talk about um, some of the things I've seen. People actually put themselves down a lot when it comes down to their
Yes.
body, or I don't have the body for this position, or this and that and other. And society, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Society can be a very cruel place if you let it play a role.
Yes.
We
Yeah,
definitely
definitely.
let it play
Definitely.
yeah. So and I was actually talking with someone about the consciousness, and he had explained something to me that made a lot of sense when it comes down to the consciousness. You know, when we well, and this is just coming from me, from what I gathered from what she was saying to me. When it comes down to the consciousness, you know, we forget that there's another side to it
Right.
that's
Right.
open to everything and to the universe, including yourself. It's a connectedness
Exactly.
some
It's
time in
connection.
this. Right.
Hmm.
And and just like you said, I deal with people all the time who are religious, non-religious, things like that. I accept people for who they are.
Right.
Um, and I tell people, just because I believe in something, you don't have to. It doesn't really, it is just for me, and I do
Exactly.
believe in God, and I believe in having a relationship with him, you know,
Hmm.
and I guess on my journey um, of becoming more of who I am. I was talking to someone about this earlier. When I identified um, my purpose, so to
Hmm.
speak,
Hmm.
it was as if I had two contracts. I had one with God
Hmm.
that I was to fulfill my purpose in this world, because it was no longer about me. It was about leaving something behind
Yes.
that could benefit other people along the way on
Hmm.
their journey. long after I'm gone. So, and I think that's the purpose of it, right? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
To leave
Mhm.
something behind for others.
Mhm.
And then the second one was another contract to the people I come in contact with,
Right. Right.
to share this thing with me so they can be, so they didn't have to carry their burden with them, to drop it
Mhm.
off with me and to leave them better than what I found them.
Yes.
But that's
Yes.
just from me though. Everybody's going to do it differently and everything. So
Mhm.
there's just rules and things that I live by. And the way I've always seen it, which gives me a purpose every time I step outside,
Yes.
um, to be open to receiving
Mhm.
what what is being given to me in not just the day, but in those moments, right?
Right. Right.
And not to carry certain moments over into others if it does not
Mhm.
fit into it, but to leave those moments where they are and to
Exactly.
walk openly into the world and to be better as I walk, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Especially in leadership positions, right? I think the and correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes down to leaders, I've always found that there's different types of leaders,
Mhm.
depending on what they're searching for.
Right, right, right. Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I definitely agree with everything that you've said. And in regards to leaders, people being put into positions of authority, again,
Mm,
I feel like there's this huge gap of the proper preparation for them taking
mm,
on that role.
yeah.
And because we are talking about mental health in the workplace, one of the biggest responsibilities of someone, a manager and above in the workplace, is recognizing the impact that they have on people.
Mm,
And when we talk about when we really think about it, if you're working a 9 to 5 position, you're spending more time at work than you are at home. And so,
yes.
if that environment is not one that's conducive of positivity and health and, helping you to be healthy and well, then you take that home. So
Mm,
if a leader in the workplace is creating an environment that is not healthy, that's negative, that's toxic, they're impacting those people, not just in the workplace, but in their personal lives and at home. And then that also goes into the community and ripples out even further. So I really stress that if you are a person in a position of authority, if you were a leader, recognize that you have a great responsibility in how you are impacting the people that are working for you and around you. If you are not creating an environment of positivity and health and allowing people to be healthy and well, then they're taking home that energy that you're creating in that environment, and
mm,
it's going even further out into the community and out into the world. And I think that's part of, the issues that we have going on in the world is that the leaders just don't have that perspective of that responsibility, and are creating the types of conducive environments that people need to be healthy, not just at work but at home and elsewhere.
mm. I like that because you hit the nail on the head. It does start. Even though we carry it to work, a lot of it does start at home. You
Right.
know, bringing problems, and I used to see this all the time as well. Men and women get in arguments with their significant other, and they come to work and they change the whole environment. And most of
Right.
these were people in management positions and things like that. And I used to watch how they used to talk to the people who
Yes.
were under them, right? And you're
Mhm.
right, they wasn't creating young leaders, to come in for when you have to step down or retire. You're not creating someone that wants to actually come in and fulfill
Mhm.
that position, because
Right.
they are looking at how you're reacting from the stress that is causing,
Right.
right? And in an environment that you're creating in, which I've always, well, I don't wander anymore, but I used to always wonder. A lot of these businesses, things
Mhm.
like that, always have high turnover rates. I used to
Yes.
always wonder that. I was like, why is your turnover rate so crazy? It seems like it's not a bad job, but it seems like every time I'm in here, you got a whole new crew.
It's the
You know,
environment.
yeah, it's the environment. And
Mhm.
when we think about the mental health in an environment like that, it could, you know, it, there has to be a better way.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I've always thought about that. There has to be a better way to give people what they need, right? In
Mhm.
order so they can thrive, being around the right people, making sure. I mean, I know that there's changes some things now in the workplace where they are providing um, people that you can go and talk to,
Right.
right? And things like that. And I think it could work. I honestly believe that it could work if
Mhm.
done the right way.
Exactly.
You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, I know for me, meditation is huge.
Yes.
Meditation is huge. Stretching is another one because
Yep.
yoga is
Mhm.
another one. I used to be very adamant about it, and I need to get back into it, just for my own self to be centered. I don't think a lot of people understand how
Right.
centering it truly really is, right?
Mhm.
um, and having someone there to help guide you along the way that actually
Yes.
know their stuff, right?
Yes.
Because we
Exactly.
both know, you know what I'm saying? You can get the wrong person and it can ruin everything that you think about.
Exactly. Exactly, exactly. And I mean, that really goes back to, again, when you say the right way. It's like, I've been in situations where, again, I've just been kind of thrown a course or a
Right, right.
handbook or a book. And, that's supposed to, help me make that transformation that I needed to make. But
Mhm,
discovering that, over and over that it wasn't. And again, when I really started to become self-aware and conscious.
mhm,
That's when things really started to, move forward in the right direction, and it just built momentum. And so, really, people understanding that, you need to be intentional. You need
mm.
to take
Yes,
control, because I
yes.
think, for the longest time, I can't remember what year it was. It was New Year's Eve, and I was at this party, and the thoughts that were going through my head, I was watching people getting drunk and celebrating around me. And I was kind of like, okay, this is a brand new year. Is it going to be a repeat of my last year?
Right.
Because I just felt like I'm
Yeah.
missing something. And that's when I really realized that I had kind of been walking through life, letting life happen to me, being
Mm,
subject to my circumstances. And that was the year that I really decided and actually discovered. I've always heard, God gave human beings, the ability to choose.
mm,
And for the longest time, I never really understood what that meant. But that year, when I really started to look deeper and be more intentional, that was my aha year of, now I understand what that means. We have a choice. And a lot of people don't realize that. You have a choice in how you feel. You have a
mm,
choice in, the state or condition that you're in. So, a lot of times when we have negative things happen to us, we get all stressed out, and it goes into this, huge ordeal of going through depression, getting
mm.
angry, trying to place blame. How did this happen? Why is this happening to me? Becoming a
Right.
victim type thing. And, you have to realize that you have a choice. If something negative happens to you, you have a choice in how you react to it. You also have a choice in, how you overcome that challenge.
Mm.
You have a
Yes,
choice
yes.
in, how you are, your state of being. Are you have a choice of being sad, upset, depressed, happy. A lot of the things that I hear people say is, "Oh, I'll be happy when I lose 20 pounds," or
Mm,
"I'll be happy when I'm making this amount of money at my job."
yes. Yeah.
And, I'm always like, well, why can't you be happy now? Why is happiness conditional? It actually isn't. It's a state of being. It's not a condition. So why are you making it a condition? Choose to be happy where you're at right now. Like you were saying, being in the present moment. And, again, I think these are things that people miss out on.
Mm.
And because of that lack of awareness, consciousness, and being intentional and understanding that they have a choice in everything that they make, do, and what happens, everything in life, they have the opportunity to choose.
Right.
They're never subject to somebody making them feel a certain way. Eleanor Roosevelt has this amazing quote that I use all the time, and it's oh my gosh, of course I'm going to forget what it is now, but basically the basically what it is, she was trying to portray that you have the power to decide how somebody makes you feel. A
Yes.
lot of the times we give that power away to other people, but it's actually our power. So we can choose to, have people's opinions of us, or expectations of us make us feel a certain way, but actually that's our choice. That's not theirs.
That's very,
So
very true.
yeah. So again, just having that conscious awareness that you have that ability, you have that power. Especially, I talk a lot about mindset because for me, that was the biggest thing. We talked about the internal struggles that people have.
Mm.
And, you know, a lot of the internal struggles that we have is, negative thoughts, negative thought patterns. I'm dealing with what we call our inner critic, is that voice in your head. It's always that inner critic who's constantly criticizing you and making you doubt
Mhm.
yourself. Imposter syndrome. I mean,
Oh,
we have all kinds of limiting beliefs that we don't even realize that we have. So really becoming self-aware and aware of those kinds of things that are happening internally,
mhm.
and then learning to manage that and overcome it. It's so and again, lots of self-awareness and internal work, because even though we feel like we have these external challenges, we
Mhm.
actually are our own worst enemy and we don't even realize that.
That's very true. That is very true. And I just want to add to what you just said there because I was sitting around thinking, when people struggle like that,
Mhm.
because I work in a field where, we have to dissect a lot of things when people
Right.
come, and go, okay, I can see you, now it's time to figure out where it's coming from.
Yes.
And a lot of times, majority of the times when people are struggling like that, you have to walk them backwards in their life to pinpoint where the struggle is actually coming from.
Mhm.
Abusive relationships, a lot of times, domestic violence, a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of generational trauma, a lot of,
Right.
just abuse,
Right.
and that they've carried with them into their adulthoods,
Mhm.
and into their adult lives and everything, which would actually make a lot of sense why they struggle in the workplace, especially connecting,
Yes.
especially connecting because I've been trying to figure this part out, and I think I almost got it down pat, in the way that I'm thinking about it. So I used to watch certain individuals in my life at that time
Mhm.
that was used to certain things, right?
Right.
And so when they didn't get certain things, they would act out to get a response
Yes.
from someone else because this is the way that they were always functioning, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So to speak. Let's talk about the narcissist, right?
Right.
The narcissist is usually will play the victim on people
Yes.
in order to make themselves not seem like the bad guy. No responsibility,
Exactly.
no accountability, and things like that. And the only reason why I
Mhm.
say that because I've been with one. So I had to learn a valuable lesson of how to deal with narcissists after a while. I was like, hold on.
Mhm.
If I take away your power, you can't do anything else to me. So,
Exactly.
there's things I developed along the way and learned how to pretty much grow, right?
Mhm.
And rebuild myself from those different things. And just like you said, going into a workplace, I used to watch. I always had to watch myself around people until I
Mhm.
kind of got a grasp on it and started pulling myself back together a little bit at a time. But I had to leave some things out, and
Right.
the growth was amazing.
Mhm.
And so, when we think about how managers and things like that bring stuff into the workplace, you know, and the internal damage
Right.
that has been done with them, you
Mhm.
know, you working on the consciousness and things like that, which is, I believe that that connects to everything else. If they're allowed to go there to help bring that stuff out, to start the healing process,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Mhm.
And that's where it gets tricky, right? Because healing is finicky. It's I always tell people healing is the hardest thing that you're going to do
Yes.
in anything that you do. And
Mhm.
they often say, "Well, why?" I said, "Because when you begin to heal, it hurts.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
definitely hurts." So I can, and this is just coming from my perspective as a male, right?
Mhm.
We don't we don't deal with that too well, right?
Right. Right.
We don't deal with that. We project on other people, right?
Mhm.
I know from me, from personal experience, when I was hurting, my motto was, if I gotta hurt, you gotta hurt too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Hurt, as they always say, hurt people, right?
Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
so and carrying that into a work environment, it's not hard to find the people that you can degrade all the time.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think, another thing about bringing things into work is that
Mm,
we've also been taught that there's kind of like this line between your professional life and your personal life, right? But then
yes.
as we're discussing, you're bringing things into the workplace, and then from the workplace you're bringing things home. So,
Yes.
what I found is that people wear masks.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I
Yes.
started to realize this, I recognized that I was wearing masks too. For the longest time when I got put into management positions, I thought that I had to embody this person of perfection.
Mm,
So, people cannot see that, I had any types of challenges, that I had to seem like I was perfect all around, work challenges as well as home challenges, which is really unrealistic.
mm,
So like you were saying, it was hard for me to connect with people for a long time because I would not let them get to know me
right.
because I thought that was a flaw.
Yes.
And really when I started to go on my journey of discovering, there's a different way to do this, I started to open up and
Mm,
get let people have the opportunity to get to know me and become vulnerable and transparent. And that's when I started making those connections with my team members, and where those relationships that were starting to grow and
mm,
develop, that's when things really got better all around, in what I was doing in my job, what they were doing in their jobs, and then
mm,
our work environment. And I know that, working with other people, struggling managers, is they kind of have that same, um, that they feel like that's the same expectation of them, is that, if you're in a position of authority, you need to seem like your life is perfect, but that's not real, and that's not what people, again, a big part of being a leader is being a role model,
right.
being an example. And so, if you that's really where I really teach people that some of the biggest things that you need to do if you want to get to started on the right foot as somebody in a position of authority is really step back for a second and think about what type of leader or manager, or whatever your role, your job title might be, what kind of person do you want to be? And that's what I call
Mm,
establishing your leader identity, is figuring out how. And this came to me when I went into my first annual review after becoming a manager. My boss got some feedback from my staff, and one of the things that she said, somebody said, was that I have this calm demeanor. And at the time, it struck me as, I don't know where they got that from, because I have not been calm in months. So I was like, man, I must be doing something good if they're thinking that I'm all put together and calm, because that was complete opposite of what I was feeling internally.
right.
Um, but that really made me realize that I had not, even though I was grateful to have that feedback, I had not, determined that that's what I wanted to be seen as, and I had no idea what I was doing to be seen in that way. So it really made me think about, okay, how do I want people describing me? What kind of manager and leader do I want people describing me? And then also, just kind of globally, what kind of person do I want people to see me as? And that really, again, more self-awareness, more self-consciousness of,
Mhm.
this is on one hand, you have what you're told you need to be and how to be that. And then on the other hand, it's you discovering who you truly are and then making the choice of, I want people to see me as this and this. And
Right.
then how do you do that? And really thinking about how do you want people describing you when somebody asks them, so how do you feel Angelie is, type thing. So again, it's a lot of internal, like you're saying, it's a lot of internal work, and it's not easy. it
No.
it is painful. I mean, I think a lot of us push against discovering who we truly are because we're scared of
Mhm.
what we're going to find out. I mean, I know
That's true.
that for me. I went through that period in my journey where uh I was encountered with really diving deeper into learning about myself, and I really had resistance to that because I was like, I feel like, there's some ugly stuff that I'm going to find out, and I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Right.
And so I know that's something that people will run into as well. So yeah, it's definitely, like you're saying, it's definitely not an easy journey, but
Mm.
like you said, it's the greatest thing you will ever do in your life.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely not easy. And I know that when we're dealing with, I've had to deal with employees who, have had addictions, who
Mm.
had some abuse, going on and at home. And when and again, I kind of went into having to deal with that very, very unprepared. Um, but again, kind of having that core of, okay, I'm starting to know who I am, and that, helps me be empathetic and understanding and compassionate, putting myself in that other person's shoes and saying, if I was going through that, how would I feel? What would be going through my brain? And really having that partnership and walking that, like you're saying, like you do with the people you work with,
Mhm.
going through that journey together, and
Right.
really being a guide, because one of the things that I really learned was that I can't do things for somebody, and I can't, make the conscious choices for them. That's
Mhm.
something that they need to do.
That's true.
All you can really do is be there to, support them and, give them advice when they ask for it. But really, it's their journey because it's their path, and no two people ever are on the same path.
You got that right. You got that right. We got a question from Lakaya. Hopefully, I'm
Yeah.
saying your name correctly. If not, I do apologize. But she goes, they're saying, why do people try to be perfect? And I think you was touching on that a little bit. Um,
Mhm.
so I'll just put it this way: when people try to be perfect, you can jump in and
Mhm.
add in, or correct me if I'm wrong or something like that. But a lot of times people try to be perfect to try to hide the things that they're going through, their character flaws and things like that. Because what's easier? It's easier for me to put on a mask
Right.
and make you think that everything is perfect in my life
Mhm.
than to feel as if I'm going to be judged by you,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And for anybody else out there that's listening, please, we welcome all questions and things like that. Angelie is right here, so please ask her questions and get them answered in real time, man. So
Mhm.
come on, interact with us and stuff. So I'm gonna hand it over to Angelie. Angelie, you wanna touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, like you're saying, I did touch on it a little bit about how I experienced that becoming a first-time manager, and what you said is perfectly true, that we tend to s- strive to appear perfect
Mm,
because, again, we don't want people seeing that we actually have flaws,
mm,
that things aren't perfect. And especially, because of the expectations of society where, you have to look a certain way or act a certain way or think a certain way. There's that pressure to appear a certain way.
mm,
And so, we put on these masks when we feel like, we do have struggles, and we don't want people to see that. Especially if
right,
you're in a position of authority,
right.
like I
Yes.
said, when I got into that, it was, I had to appear perfect all the time, and that was far, far from the truth. And again, I think that, um if you for people that are feeling like they have to do that, again, there's some inner work that they need to do, because again, that's not realistic. Perfect doesn't exist.
Right.
And I am a constant recovering perfectionist. And so I have to constantly remind myself that perfect does not exist. There is not a perfect time. There is not a perfect condition. It will never happen. So, what I found with myself in being a perfectionist is that also, it kind of was an onion that had several layers. So
Oh
my
yeah. Oh yeah.
perfectionism, yeah, I made me procrastinate.
Mm,
And I had different fears with things that made me do that. Fear of being seen, fear of conflict, fear of losing control. And because of that, I procrastinated, and then I told myself that I was trying to be perfect because that's who I needed to be, when in fact I had all of these internal things going on that I needed to deal with.
and see, I can relate to that as well. It was the things that I didn't want people to know about me. You know,
Exactly.
that
Hmm.
I learned how to hide very well.
Yes.
Learned how to
I
hide
think we all
very well.
do.
You know, when I was homeless, I made people believe that I lived in, that I was doing okay.
Hmm.
When when I was falling apart inside, I people thought that I was healthy because I was constantly working out and things like that. So, and but from and it could be the same way across the board, when it comes down to it. I did it for the simple fact of I didn't want anyone to ask me if I was okay.
Right. Right.
I didn't want anyone to worry about what was going on with me,
Right. Right.
or things like that. I guess that was just my own interpretation of it. I just didn't want nobody to worry or to ask me questions. As a matter of fact, for the longest time, I really didn't want people to talk to me.
Right.
I just wanted to be left alone. So I portrayed that everything that was going good in my life, and to be honest with you, my life was falling apart like
Right.
nobody's
Right.
business. It was like, hey, yeah, you really this okay? And sure enough,
Mhm.
and eventually I did start projecting. I did start. Um, I started I started being angry with people because it was that
Yes.
outward, that outward motion of it coming out, and I didn't know how
Mhm.
to deal with it and things like that.
Mhm.
That's why I wish, back. Well, I'm actually glad. I wish there was somebody around when I was going through to help me understand, help guide me to become the man that I am, and
Right.
things like that. Now, the beautiful part about it, and I do not suggest this for other people, is it may be for you, it may not be for you. But I learned, I kind of figured it out, through a lot of isolation, and pounding on my brain for understanding,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
going inside of there and going, okay, let's see what's hiding right now. Let
Yeah.
me dig through my own mind so I can start picking out these things and understanding how I'm thinking about it, and maybe instead of reacting to
Mhm.
what's going on, maybe I can start responding to what's going
Yes.
on.
Yes.
Right. So, and that was the difference. Now, there was another thing that I did too. Um, I could not stand when people used to say, "Oh, that person's broken," or things like that, because I used to say it too. I was like, "What do you want with me? I'm broken, right?"
Mhm.
And it was the wording. I
Yes.
realized it was the wording behind it. And one day I got up and I said, "I am not broken. I'm
Y-
hurt, but I'm not broken." And
Yes.
then I thought about it for a minute. I said, "Well, why does that make sense to me?" Well, it dawned on me.
Mhm. Mhm.
You can break bones, you can break things, you know, um, but you can't break a person.
Yes.
You can hurt a person very deeply, which again, it would be projected out, right? You can hurt a person, but you can't break a person. And the
Right.
reason why I say that, because when you break things, you either get rid of it and because it's useless after a while, or if you break a bone, you get a doctor go in there, put a cast on it or something.
Mhm.
There's parts of you that cannot be that does not fit into the definition of broken. It fits into the
Mhm.
definition of hurt. And so when
Mhm.
I realized when I changed that, it changed my whole perception of how I showed up in the world. I showed
Yes.
up at my job and things like that, because no longer am I looking for the negative way. I'm no longer looking for perfection. I'm not
Yes.
looking to fit in. I am just looking to exist
Mhm.
in myself in those specific moments
Mhm. Mhm.
throughout the day, and to be
Mhm.
able to carry myself into the next moment without bringing the negativity with me.
Yes.
And I think a
Yes.
lot of that was just a part of my journey of becoming who I am. Um, and so, yeah, I think that to answer your question, Lakaya, a lot of people pretend or try to be perfect because they're afraid to show that what's really going on in their lives, and I really hope that that helps and everything. Um, as we segue into the next segment, let's talk about your books. You wrote a couple of books, right?
Yes, yes, and they are both ironically on mindset.
Uh, okay.
So the first book that I wrote, I think it was a 2 or 3 years now, was my
Mhm,
very first book, and at the time it was, I've always loved writing since I was in third grade.
mhm,
I was on my newspaper staff, and I've always had this dream of writing a book and becoming an author. So part of it was, fulfilling and realizing that dream of doing that. And my first book is called Mindset: The Power of the Mind. And it's really an introduction of mindset from my own experience of, how I stumbled on mindset and how powerful our minds are and we don't even know it. Um, and I think that when I discovered mindset, it was kind of in the middle of my management career. And I had always thought that, mindset was kind of, an attitude or your personality.
mhm.
And then when I really discovered mindset and really started to dive deeper into it, it's so much more than that. It's
Yes. Oh,
your
yes.
conscious and your subconscious mind and this programming that you have, your limiting beliefs, your inner critic, your negative self-talk. It encompasses all this stuff. And um I've always been so fascinated with, again, how our own minds um can work against us. And
Mhm.
for most
Yes.
people, for a majority of our lives, it actually does. And we don't even realize it because, again, there's this auto programming that's happening with our subconscious based
Right.
on experiences and circumstances that we've been through in our lives. And because we tend to hold like emotions and stuff in because we're trying to appear perfect,
Mhm.
um,
Yes. Yes.
it has these consequences of really kind of getting us stuck and trapped in these mindsets, these scarcity and lack and negative mindsets that,
Mhm.
again, most people don't even realize that they have. And again, most people don't even understand what mindset is and how it affects them, and how, you can stop the pattern of your mind working against you and actually harness that power
Mhm.
and use your mind to work for you instead of against you. So that's what the first book about, is really an introduction to mindset. And then the book that I just released last month is called Leader Mindset Activation, and it's specifically for first time managers or people in positions of authority. And it's the leader mindset activation is a methodology that I put together after going through my journey and working with my mindset. And that it's a three-phase methodology of becoming aware, activating your mindset, and then also harnessing its power,
Mm,
to really take on what I call a leader mindset, as opposed to, like I was saying, a negative scarcity and lack mindset. And then harnessing that, the power of your mind to, again, really take advantage of that and utilize it for you to be successful in not just the workplace, but in your personal life as well.
nice. I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
So as we start to wrap up, I always ask my guests, you know, if you had anything to tell anyone out there right now in the world, um,
Mhm.
what would you leave them with?
Well, I would leave them with, you know, you're beautiful and you're amazing for who you are. A lot of the times, like I've been talking about through this segment, is we there are expectations from society and families and cultural expectations and things like that, and people try and mold us and put us
Mm,
in these boxes. And a lot of the times, we're told that being different is bad. um, and really, that couldn't be farther from the truth. God made us all individually unique,
mm,
and for most of our lives, we really trying to escape that uniqueness, being different in some way, in some fashion. But it's really about embracing that uniqueness, embracing how you're different, and realizing that that's a strength and not a weakness. So what I want to leave people with is that you are beautiful just the way that you are, and to learn to like and love yourself, because when you can do that, opportunities and doors open up for you all around you, because God and the universe hears that and gives you those opportunities. So learn to like and love yourself. So many things will change and start to go your way when you do that. And a lot of it is about energy, and we don't have time to talk about that today. But yeah, when you're creating energy and being at a frequency where you're attracting the same energy
mhm.
that is positive, then amazing things start to happen, instead of being in lower frequencies of energy and attracting negative things to you. So
See, I like that. We're gonna have to do this again and talk about the energy because now you got me. Because I'm like,
yeah.
I see where you're coming from. I
hmm
see you. I see you. So yeah, you guys be sure to remind me to bring it back on so we can dive into the energy part of this thing. I think you guys will be amazed because that's right up my alleyway about
oh yeah.
how this world really works and the energy and
Yes.
vibrational frequencies that we carry and how it does affect everything around us, how to raise it, and then how to know when you're functioning at a lower vibration in this world as
hmm
well. Because a lot of people don't really understand that because when you function at a lower vibration, you are actually attracting lower vibrational things and people into your life. You
Exactly. And an
know,
example is, if you have something bad happen in your day, you continuously have bad things happen in that day, right? You're
uh-huh.
you're attracting it to you.
Yeah, yeah. So we're definitely going to talk about that. We're definitely going to talk about that. So how can people find you?
Yeah, so I am on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. I'm super proud of my YouTube channel. We have about 5,000 followers on there. And
Okay.
we put videos out every week that, again, talking about leadership, how you can develop into a leader. Again, I talk to managers in the workplace, but it is, again, we all strive to be leaders of our own lives. So what I talk about is applicable to basically anybody. And so I encourage you to check out my YouTube channel. It's at Oversight Global. And then all my handles are at Oversight Global. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all at Oversight Global. And then my website is www.oversightglobal.com.
All right. And I would definitely be putting her information and the description and everything. So guys, please check her out. Check out her books as well. You know, and hopefully, you guys enjoyed another episode of Grief Let's Talk About It podcast and got a lot out of it. And as always, man, if you guys want to support the channel, we never ask for money. Just go to the channel, subscribe to it, hit that bell notification, share it, leave us a comment, and let other people know that we're out here bringing these amazing conversations. And as always, thank you for allowing us to support you and allowing us to keep bringing these amazing stories to you. I am Tony Lynch. I'm your host. And with that being said, you guys have a great night.